called Terminix.
For service when you want it, the way you want it. Call 1-800-Terminix. No bugs, no hassles.
For dry, red eyes, Clear Eyes is awesome. Unlike the other leading eye drop, it removes redness and has an ingredient to moisturize. Wow. The difference is clear. Clear Eyes.
Now your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Severe thunderstorms are breaking out in the Mid-Atlantic region this afternoon. Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. are in the watch areas. Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in for Weather Center. I'm Bob Stokes. Rich Johnson is monitoring the storms from our forecast center. Let's join him now for the latest.
All right, thank you, Bob. Several watches out. We have watches out for the Mid-Atlantic, also into areas of the upper Midwest. Right now, though, some good news over to Philadelphia. No longer in a severe thunderstorm watch. So let me show you who's in the watch presently. Philadelphia right here, of course, in the corner of Pennsylvania. Baltimore, D.C., all the way back down to Charleston. You are all still under these severe thunderstorm watches. And a tornado watch in effect for southeastern North Dakota and northeastern South Dakota. Starting in the northeast, we have a front moving on in, and we have a disturbance well out ahead of the front. Certainly a very hot day today with some of the temperatures into the mid-90s with the heat index. That's the combination of the heat and humidity. Feels like it's over 100 degrees. Earlier today it was 113 degrees in Philadelphia. Heat index, that is. Thunderstorms beginning to build up. This is where we're watching, right in through here. Those are the tops of the thunderstorms that are building up pretty rapidly. Thunderstorms right now across New Jersey, out across the New Jersey shore. In fact, there are several different areas out across coastal waters. Actually, Chesapeake Bay north of Pools Island still under a marine advisory. We're talking about this area right up here. Delaware Bay now under a marine advisory, and parts of the New Jersey coast for these storms, which are essentially there right now. Look for improving conditions, but I did want to point out back to Philadelphia, even though the severe thunderstorm watch has now been canceled, this region right under here still under a flash flood warning. That's until 6:30 Eastern Time. Places like Schuylkill County, southern Dauphin County, all the way down toward northern York and northwestern Lancaster County. So from Harrisburg all the way back down toward Philadelphia. Looking just a bit farther to the south, that line bows back out across northeastern Maryland and right on back over toward Baltimore County. That's where this one thunderstorm is here, just north of the city up to around Timonium. Additional storms back out across northern West Virginia. At the present time, those storms aren't doing so much. So we're primarily concerned about those thunderstorms out along the New Jersey coast, which possibly could have some very strong damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour. The threat will be with you probably another 15 minutes or maybe slightly longer, maybe up to a half an hour, and then conditions should improve a lot. Looking back out across the upper Midwest, Cold fronts coming in. We also have a trough of low pressure, and sort of where all these things come together, that is where we're watching for severe weather. Notice thunderstorms building up, some of those in southeastern Minnesota, but the nastiest storms right across this region right here. In fact, as we look at the latest radar, we're watching this one cell right through here near Aberdeen. There is a tornado warning still out for Edmonds County and north central McPherson County. This storm should be making its way very close toward Owataka, actually maybe just past that vicinity as these storms build up and continue to move off to the northeast. So the possibility of tornadic thunderstorms across the Dakotas, still a chance of severe thunderstorms from D.C. right on up toward Baltimore and, of course, out toward New Jersey coast. Well, if you're going to be away from your TV and you want to keep updated with what's going on with these thunderstorms, check it out at weather.com. For more about the heat wave and your forecast, let's go back to the studio with Bob Stokes.
Well, thanks a lot, Rich. Temperatures in the 90s can be found in a large portion of the country today. Some areas are hitting dangerous heat levels. Now, it's a hot, humid day in our nation's capital. Now, many of you are trying to stay cool while walking around the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Stopping to get an ice cream or a cool glass of lemonade is one way to stay cool and ensure you enjoy the afternoon. It's good to take those refreshment breaks, cool you down, because it's dangerously hot in many areas. Now, these are the actual air temperatures. These aren't the heat indexes. These aren't the heat indices. It's 105 degrees right now in Amarillo, 105. 104 degrees in Midland, Odessa. And notice a lot of that hot air in the south has made its way up into the northeast. Now, the thunderstorms that Richard was talking about have had the effect of cooling some locales down. Now, the records today in Washington, New York, and Philadelphia are 100 degrees. It doesn't look like you're going to be reaching those records, but it's plenty hot. 93 in New York and Washington. Factor in the moisture, and it feels like 102 in the nation's capital. So, indeed, those lemonade breaks, let me say, lemonade breaks, are in order in Washington, D.C., in that festival. And look at these, a lot of century mark and above numbers as far as the heat indices are concerned in the nation's midsection. Some good news for you, though. We've got a cold front on the way over the next few days that's going to bring some relief here in the nation's midsection. But right now, tomorrow, as you look forward to your weekend, dangerously hot. The heat indices are going to be in the dangerous category in the southeast and across Texas. So that means to avoid, for example, dehydration, you do need to take plenty of water breaks if you're going to be exerting yourself for any length of time outside. There's a look at the northeast, Boston 86, 93 in New York. There's something known as the urban heat island. That's with all the glass, all the asphalt, all the concrete. It tends to make it even hotter in these big cities. So some locales may even be hotter than 93, and it actually feels like 100 degrees, but it could feel higher in some locales.
We bought Armor All Protectant. It shines, it protects. It's new car juice.
The less we spend on sleeping, the more we spend on living. Thank you, Microtel Inns.
Now your local forecast on the Weather Channel.
Severe thunderstorms are breaking out in the mid-Atlantic region this afternoon. Baltimore and Washington, D.C. are in the watch areas. It looks like the worst has passed the Philadelphia area. Good afternoon. Thanks for tuning in for Weather Center. I'm Janetta Jones. Rich Johnson is monitoring the storms from our forecast center. Let's join him now for the latest.
Thank you, Janetta. We continue to follow severe thunderstorms out across the mid-Atlantic, now crossing Delaware back into Maryland. Westward now to Ohio, severe thunderstorms building up. Also, more storms in South Dakota, some of these possibly tornadic. Let's start in the mid-Atlantic with the watches. Still down to Baltimore, D.C., back to Charleston, over to Dover. You are under a severe thunderstorm watch. Meanwhile, the tornado watch does continue for a large part of eastern South Dakota and extreme southeastern North Dakota. Here's the setup in the east. We have a cold front moving on in, but it's really not the cold front which are triggering these severe storms out across this area here. It's due to a combination of upper air disturbance plus some very high heat today, causing high instability. In other words, a strong uplift in the atmosphere. This is what we're looking at now. Thunderstorms blowing off the coast of New Jersey, also off of Long Island. Additional storms now beginning to form, especially into Ohio. You see these here also into north central and northeastern Indiana. Additional storms have intensified up across extreme northeastern New York State, also into west central Vermont. Notice the storms over across Long Island running out across Suffolk County. Earlier, there were reports of some wind damage. In fact, over at Deer Park, there was reports of trees and wires down. Also at Melville, 3/4 inch diameter hailstones. It looks like the worst is over now for New York City and especially out to Long Island. Back over to Dover, additional thunderstorms making their way out across Delaware Bay, and still we have warnings out for marine interest from Cape Henlopen all the way down to Fenwick Island. Essentially, we're talking about the coastal areas of Delaware. Back out across northern Baltimore City into over south of Timonium and heading eastward, possibility of some hail with these storms. Storms in West Virginia don't appear to be causing much of a problem, but out toward Montgomery County, maybe out to Rockville, northwest of D.C., that's where you may find some hail with those developing thunderstorms. Back into Ohio within the past hour, a couple different lines have rapidly built up. So over to Pittsburgh, you may anticipate some thunderstorms coming on in with some small hail right now in Ashland County, north central Ohio. Severe thunderstorm warning. So thunderstorms dying out West Virginia, but still pretty strong around Baltimore City as well as central Ohio. Let me show you the Dakotas, and here's the situation that we're looking at. We're looking at our cold front coming on in and several different lines of storms now out across northern South Dakota. The storms right up through here, those are possibly tornadic. Brown County, of course, that's the county in which Aberdeen is in. We're looking at the possibility of a tornado possibly affecting the Claremont area, Putney area about this time, maybe a couple minutes ago. But if you see threatening weather, make sure you take cover. Also, the storms much farther off to the west. We're looking at reporters from Columbia and Frederick reporting winds gusting more than 60 miles per hour. So the chance of severe thunderstorms with tornadoes in the Dakotas. Well, if you're going to be away from your television, you want to check out more information about anything with the weather, especially the storms, check it out at weather.com. Now let's see what's going on with the forecast. Back in the studio with Janetta.
All right, thanks, Rich. Temperatures in the 90s can be found in a large portion of the country today. Some areas are hitting dangerous heat levels. It's a hot, humid day in our nation's capital. Many of you are trying to stay cool while walking around the Smithsonian Folklife Festival. Shopping to get an ice cream or a cool glass of lemonade is one way to stay cool and ensure that you enjoy the afternoon. After all, you're on vacation, right? All right, let's check out the temperature regime because it is a hot one in many locales, especially into Texas. If you can deal with this kind of heat, boy, you have really got some stamina. 106 in Amarillo as well as Midland, 107 in Wichita, Kansas. That's without the high dew points. Well, actually, you don't have to deal with the high dew points here. But folks in Dallas and Houston, St. Louis, even Washington, D.C. are having to deal with that really, really hot, humid air mass. As a matter of fact, in D.C., it feels like 102 right now. Things have really cooled down in Philadelphia after a heat index of well over 100. The rain moved through and things have cooled down significantly for you, so that's some good news. Into St. Louis, the current reading is 94. We're talking 94 in Kansas City, but it feels like 102. Feels like 103 in Lincoln and 101 for you there in St. Louis. Oh boy. Would you look at Dallas? 106 is what it feels like. Feels like 98 in Atlanta, 103 in Little Rock. So dangerous heat index values across this particular region. Today it's going to be like that tomorrow and the next day. So make sure you drink plenty of fluids, preferably water. Make sure you take a lot of breaks, maybe hit the pool, hit the mall, someplace with an air conditioner. And make sure you check on the elderly and the children too. You know what? Earlier today we had thunderstorm move through Miami. Cool things off a bit. That's kind of some welcome relief for a lot of folks. Some heavy amounts of rain, and as you can see, that sort of wreaked havoc on the roadways. Look at those sheets of rain just really blowing on through the Miami metro area, but at least we cooled things off. Elsewhere across the southeast, we can tell you about this area of convection. What is it? Good question. Yesterday we thought it might become a tropical depression, but it has stayed just an area of disturbed weather. The center of circulation somewhere right in here, about to move on shore, and did not ever get a closed low in association with this because of the upper low right here. We did have a ridge of high pressure in control across the southeast, but didn't quite make it underneath that ridge of high pressure, which would have been favorable for further development. What we do have is a lot of tropical moisture. So all of that is going to be reaching northward into Louisiana and giving us quite a bit of rainfall. In fact, the forecast does call for 1, 2, maybe 3 inches of rain. So we have coastal flood watches in effect right on through tonight. So that's what's happening across the eastern half of the country. How about your forecast? Well, we're going to continue to watch the chance for showers moving into Louisiana, and actually that will be increasing by tomorrow morning. You may want to sleep in since it's going to be so soggy, right? Chance for showers and thunder showers are re-entering the picture for you in Minneapolis and Green Bay and maybe even down into Cleveland. And Florida may get some much needed rain. Miami could get popped again tomorrow afternoon with another thunder shower. We'll keep things dry and pretty quiet for you across the southwest. Locally, we could get 2, maybe 3 inches of rain, possibly more than that, due to that tropical moisture surging northward. Temperatures are going to be cool for the Intermountain West, but the rest of the country, forget about it. It's going to be very, very mild to warm. We're going to talk about warm temperatures in the morning hours, and in the afternoon, well, I think you know what we're talking about. It's going to be very hot and very humid. Now, let's give you the scoop on what's happening in the tropics. And as we start out, we want to tell you about Hurricane Blas. What was once a very powerful hurricane is now slowly but surely winding down and moving away from land. Yesterday at this time, we were talking about a very strong hurricane. I guess a little earlier than this yesterday. It was at a Category 4 status, with winds up to 140 miles per hour. That's on the Saffir-Simpson scale. Well, now it is much, much more decreased than that. We're talking about winds at 105 miles per hour. It's moving west at 13 miles per hour, so it is moving away from land and not really posing a huge threat to anyone. Here's the estimated pressure. It continues to go up. The higher the pressure, the weaker the storm or hurricane, as in this case. That's usually a good rule of thumb. Now, as you check out the coordinates, just in case you're plodding along with us, I'll let you jot those down. 17.6 north, 113.5 west. That centers it about 420 miles south-southwest of Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. Want to show you this satellite picture as it goes into motion, and you can see it's not quite as impressive as it was yesterday. Nevertheless, it is still a hurricane. You can still see the eye of the hurricane, and still kind of interesting to watch that as it continues to move on out to sea. Yesterday we were talking about the threat for some large swells. We may still see that over the course of time, but it is moving away, so that's good news. All right, let's take you on into the Gulf of Mexico and talk about this area of disturbed weather. Kind of complicated. Yesterday we thought that at one point it could even become a tropical depression. That never happened, and let me tell you why. First of all, we had the center of circulation always to the west of the convection. In other words, the convection, or showers and thunder showers, most of the action was to the east of the thing. Okay. The other aspect of this that was a little bit less than favorable for development was the fact that the ridge of high pressure aloft was over here across the southeast, and we had an upper low right in here. So that was not conducive for further development. Hurricane hunters went in yesterday, they investigated, they came out and they said, you know what, there was no closed low, and that's what you need at the surface for a tropical depression. So voila, we did not get a tropical depression. We still have a lot of convection though, still have a lot of moisture, and what we're thinking now is that this weekend we're going to have to watch for some heavy amounts of rain. Now granted, you folks have been looking at very, very dry conditions along the Gulf Coast, so you need the rain for that reason. You also need the rain to cool things down. It's been way too hot. So that's the good news. The bad news is we could see a lot of rain, 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 inches of rain. We have put together this radar estimated precipitation for you for today, and so far we have seen in some locations up to a couple of inches of rain, and just offshore a little bit more than that. So we're going to be monitoring that situation. You know what? Typically during the month of June, we do find tropical development in these 2 locales. So that was not anything out of the ordinary. If something does develop in the Gulf of Mexico or the Caribbean, it would take typically one of these tracks based on past storms and past hurricanes. Okay, so you can keep that in the back of your mind as we look at these maps for the next few days. And as we check out what else is happening across the rest of the Caribbean, all is relatively quiet. We don't have any big news other than what was happening in the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the coast of Africa, and we do have a couple of tropical waves that are moving off of the coast, but no development expected here whatsoever. It's a little early in the season for that. Checking the water vapor imagery, you can clearly pick out all of that moisture, that tropical moisture that's going to be moving northward into the Gulf of Mexico states, and you can also see Hurricane Blas as it continues to churn on out towards the west. All right, what's happening with the upper level winds? You can see how we had that upper high, that ridging taking place across the southeast. And you had your upper low right in here. So that was not conducive for development with that little area of disturbed weather. Just to give you a feel for the hurricane season, typically it peaks out around September the 10th, somewhere in there. End of August through October, that's when we...
With Storm Watch at the Weather Channel, we'll look at tonight's active stormy weather. One such spot is where a tornado warning is in effect for extreme northeast Dodge County and northern Olmsted County. Just a few minutes ago, spotters reported a funnel cloud that is presently near Pine Island. That's just about 15 miles to the northwest of Rochester, Minnesota. So again, very rough situation. We'll look at the active stormy weather and also talk tropics with our tropical update, which is a part of Storm Watch at 10 minutes till every hour on the Weather Channel. Let's have a look at Hurricane Blas. Things are fading fast here. Good news, right? Its current coordinates here, as you see, it's 17.7 north, 114.4 west. Currently, it's 450 miles southwest of Cabo San Lucas. Sustained winds now around 105. It's moving west around 12 miles an hour as well. You can see where it became classified as a tropical storm, represented by the first dot there. And you kind of watch its progress it's made the last few days. It's kind of taking somewhat of a west-northwesterly track, and that should allow it to kind of wind down a bit. It's kind of running into a bit of some problems, not able to hold it together to maintain its intensity, so it is falling off. But as it moves on, maybe the next 2 days, it's going to kind of fall below hurricane strength. If it should take more of a northerly jag to its path, that would actually help to even weaken it a bit faster, given the current situation there. Look at it right there. Things are starting to kind of fade in it a bit. You can still see the center of circulation. You can also see where some of the oranges and yellows remain. A bit of warming is happening